In this video, I'm going to show you how I grew my baby Anthurium Veitchii into this beautiful mature plant. Guess we'll keep her about here. Okay, I need to address something first. Right before recording, my mic, this one over here, decided to break. And so I am using my Blue Yeti mic. I'm a little worried. I don't know how it's going to sound. Like I spent like half an hour trying to adjust the sound. I hope it's okay. The mic is like right here. But anyhow, in this video, I'm going to show you the journey growing this plant from a little tiny baby. Basically what I did, what substrates I used. And so I think I'm including updates from like the 6-month mark, the year mark, 1.5 year mark, the 2-year mark. Starting from the beginning, I got this plant in I think July 2021. So a little over 2 years ago. I first received this plant in I think it was sphagnum moss, and y'all, I was so excited. I've wanted a Veitchii for so long, and I don't know if y'all remember, in 2021, like maybe close to the end of 2020 also, the price of this plant like skyrocketed. When you compare it to like 2018, 2019, at least in Canada or around me, I don't know. I was like, oh my gosh, I like can't even afford a huge one now. So I bought this small one. I was very, very excited, and y'all know me. I really prefer to grow plants, you know, from little babies just so I can see them grow. Fast forward, I think at the time I didn't have enough pon, so I'm pretty sure I did like a pon LECA perlite mix and put it in one of these closed self-watering planters. I used to use these planters with a lot of my plants. It's kind of when I started, you know, experimenting with issues upon. It was the same planter I put my Queen Anthurium in initially, if you missed that video. But yeah, that is one thing that I regret, like putting it in one of these planters just because you're not able to flush the substrate. And like the Veitchii, like it is a pretty hardy one, and you'll see in the clips, like I didn't flush it at all, like ever really. But when it comes to Anthuriums, like I wouldn't risk it with these planters. I don't know when, but before the 6-month mark, I did get my hands on more pon. Y'all know that pon is so hard to get. And then I just repotted it in the same planter. I did not have any issues. Like, honestly, this plant is so easy. It is so easy. And so she started pushing out leaves, like, really quickly. She's a little cutie. And honestly, it was the right decision because now I have this like excitement to watch it grow, and I'm already excited to show you guys what it looks like now. So I got this plant 6 months ago. She only had 1 leaf. Okay guys, this is the Anthurium Veitchii. Oh my gosh. So cute. Okay, so this is the newest leaf. She is so glossy. She is this deep green. And she has 3 other leaves here. Oh my gosh, so cute. Honestly, I don't see a lot of baby Veitchiis. So when I saw this one, I was like, oh my god, she's a little cutie. I love her so much. Oops. Oh my god. I was moving the pod and then I just uncovered a root right over there. Yeah, I don't have much to say about it, but I'm just obsessed. So y'all can see that she had no issues. Like the leaves look healthy, they're nice and green. And I think I forgot to mention when I repotted it in pon, I did have this slow release fertilizer I was experimenting at the time. So it's kind of similar to Osmoco. It's not that brand, but it was slow release fertilizer, kind of an even mix between nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And I was just putting about a teaspoon in the pon when I repotted it. So I was just kind of adding to what was already in the pon. And so the next clip is from a year after. And at this point, I didn't move her away from the grow light. She was up against the south facing window, which is where she lives now. So just up on the shelf, right where my hand is. So she's been up there for like a 1.5 years, I guess, at this point. But that was her new home, and she was totally fine with it. I got this Anthurium a year ago, and I got it as a really juvenile specimen. I had her really close to a grow light in the very beginning, just because, you know, transferring a plant to a new medium, and obviously if a plant is more juvenile, I always feel like they need more light. I don't know. So she started growing. I just can't believe, I'm like, look, she's like right behind y'all. Oh, okay, guys, what is happening? So let me point this out first. Let's pop in that picture again. This is that same leaf. I'm pretty sure. I don't think this plant dropped any leaves. I'm pretty sure this leaf is the leaf that it came to me with. And yeah, each leaf got bigger. Like here's the second one, then the third one. Fourth, she got a little burnt by the grow light. Fifth, sixth, and now the newest leaf. Can't believe, because when you compare, like look at this small one, and this is like the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth and seventh leaf just kind of like took off. She's in pawn. Like I haven't transferred her since I transferred her out of that other mix. And yeah, I don't know, maybe the plant knows that it's like just established in this medium. But can you believe, guys? Like I am so shocked. Like this is just, I don't know. I don't know. I would have to say a very easy Anthurium. So if y'all want to get into Anthuriums, the Veitchii is just so easy. I'm pretty sure when this leaf came out, she got kind of big, almost too big to kind of stay under a grow light, and I didn't want the leaves to burn. And I know this Anthurium doesn't necessarily need a lot of light, so she now sits a meter, maybe a half a meter away from my south-facing window on a top shelf here. So even when the sun is high up in the sky during the summer, she doesn't get like the full like impact of the sun. So it's more like dappled, like diffused, moderate light, I want to say. I don't know. It's just like so impressive to me that it started out as this and now it's this. Can you believe? I want to say that she's been in this medium for about 9 months. I personally believe that for aeroids, the slow release fertilizer that comes with it, there's not necessarily enough. So I have my own. Let me just grab it, y'all. Hold on. So while I repotted the Veitchii, I used this slow release fertilizer. So it's kind of like Osmocote. It's a 1311L11. It says that it's 100 days. So again, about 3 months. So I'm pretty sure that when I was repotting this guy, probably when she was like this small, I sprinkled a little bit, I want to say maybe a teaspoon more into the medium. And yeah, I mean, that might explain why the leaves after got so big. Man, that plant is so beautiful. I love. Honestly, I always heard how easy this Anthurium was, and I didn't necessarily believe it, but honestly owning it for this long, I believe it, obviously. And so this next clip is 6 months later, so it would be 1.5 years of having this plant still against the south-facing window. I think I'm just showing it. I'm just watering it, and I think in the clip I say that I'm still not flushing it even though I'm able to. She looks stunning in this next clip. Okay guys, I don't really need to do anything with this one, but like I just want to show you my Veitchii. Oh, fully hardened off, guys. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful plant. So I just had to move her out of the way because I want to grab my Esmeraldans, but there's a juicy, do you see that? Future Kevin, zoom in. Look at that juicy, juicy root. So I'm just gonna water her. I'm just gonna water the pond through. Not through. I'm not actually opening that drainage hole. I'm just gonna let it sit in the reservoir. Oh, it's filling up fast. Okay. So again, this was just an excuse to show you. I guess I need to water her. But oh my gosh, look at her. Okay, maybe put her back. And so that will bring us to the 2-year update. Or like just 2 years of having this plant. She pushed out this huge, gorgeous leaf. I think it's this one over here. I'm pretty sure it's that one. She's like actually right behind me. Do you see this? Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Oh, look. Look. Seriously? This is actually unbelievable. Again, you can see in the coloration, she is not hardened off. The leaf before that, if you want to see the difference, this is the leaf before. I can't even see what y'all are seeing. Okay, there is a difference in color. It's bigger than the last one, and the last one was like massive. Look at this. It's seriously stunning. And just the plant in general. Like, look at all these leaves. In total, I think there's 6 right now. So, I don't even know. It's so beautiful. Wow. I'm like all the way back here. I don't know if you can see me, but like I'm like against the table over here. But yeah, look. Do you see this? Okay, let's do a close up. Look at these. Oh my gosh. And okay, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I'm pretty sure, was it 2 years ago? I first got this plant as a baby and she had 1 leaf. Future Kevin, please put in a picture of when I first got it. And wow, it's always one of my favorite things, watching a plant grow from just like a tiny little baby. And again, that's why like 99.9% of my plants I buy tiny, because I like watching them grow, learning from them. And like what I've learned from the Veitchii is that it's really a very hardy and resilient and like one of the easiest Anthuriums I've ever owned. I always recommend the King Anthurium. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like it doesn't have love because I don't see it anymore. Like I don't see like people having this Anthurium. And I guess because like everyone's obsessed with like, you know, the cool hybrids, the velvet leaf Anthuriums, the dark leaves, and I am as well, but like, come on. Yeah, unless she's a pond. So I want to say like I did pot her, but like I think at this point she's been in this pot for like either a year or almost a year. She's happy. Look at this big juicy aerial root that's about to do its thing, Y'all know me and my flushing practices when it comes to just, you know, my plants in semi and passive hydroponics. I generally don't. I start to flush the ones that are velvet leaf Anthuriums just out of fear. So this one I did flush like maybe 2 weeks ago, again, just out of fear. But yeah, prior to that I didn't. So, I mean, okay, that brings us to today. And so she did push out an additional leaf over here. Oh my god, I keep forgetting that my mic's not attached to me, so I have to like stay here. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm so not used to this. Oh my gosh, okay. Wow, okay. So this leaf over here is the newest leaf, but it's the only leaf that has come out since this giant one. And I mentioned this before in maybe a planter video. I was like, okay, the leaf is smaller than the previous, which kind of tells me maybe I do need to repot it. In between, she did push out a few inflows, which might have played a role in why it's smaller. It's still gorgeous, y'all. Like, I'm not saying that it's like much smaller. I'm just kind of comparing it to the last one. I have since cut off all the leaves just because of space. Like you can see if I show you here, there's been so many situations, not on camera, where the leaves would get caught on so many plants and would rip a lot of leaves. And so I made the decision just to cut them all. But I think before she had like 8 of various stages. And so anyhow, that is why there's only 2 of these leaves here. And I guess I'll jump into like the conditions, like on average, like through the 2 years of growing this plant, like what did I do? And I want to start off with the lighting. So when she was a little itty bitty thing, like the picture I showed you in the beginning, like, you know, I kind of did that same thing where I blast them with light. So I think at that stage, it was probably getting 1,000-foot candles right under my Sunblaster LED Grow lights for 14 hours a day. Does this plant need that much light? No. I was just kind of scared, you know, transferring this from moss to pond. I was really scared that it wasn't gonna make it. And especially the prices at the time, I was like, okay, I can't like afford to like lose this one. Looking back, I think I would recommend medium to bright and dark light. So I think 6 months to a year is when I decided to move her away from the grow light. I think in one of the previous clips you saw that one of the leaves was kind of burned by the grow light. And so I moved her over there against my south facing window. And a lot of people think, okay, south facing window, that is a ton of light. Some people say a south facing window is too much for an Anthurium, but living here for 7 years, you have your good days, you have your bad days. What I mean by that, like there's some days where the sun is just like blasting all the plants and it's so beautiful and warm in this room, but there's a lot of days similar to today, and I mean it's winter now, so I guess this doesn't count, but it is so dark and you get no sun. You probably get like 50 to like 200-foot candles, which in my opinion is too low for an Anthurium. So the south facing window I would say fluctuates between medium to bright and direct light depending, and the hours of light are definitely different just because of the season. Currently now it's winter, so less hours of light, but because it's been like a year and a half that she's been like against the window and she's sized up quite a bit, I would say it's enough for the Veitchii. If we're looking at temperature, it has stayed between 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity has been 40 to 60%. I do want to say though that I think when I first got it, the humidity was much lower. I want to say 35, even 30% to about 55%. Now that there's a lot of plants in here, the humidity has shifted a little bit upwards. If y'all don't know, if you have a lot of plants all bunched up together, you boost up the humidity. And so I think for the past year, it's been 40 to 60%. This is one of the Anthuriums that I give as an example that it is so tough, especially when the wind is blowing. This leaf is right under my vent. So I have a vent right there, the leaf is right there. And there's been new leaves that unfurl under the vent and they've been fine. So dry heat during the winter when I turn on the heat, and like cool air conditioning during the summer. So I want to say about 60 degrees Fahrenheit is generally the setting that we put our air conditioning to. Moving on to watering and fertilization. So watering, with any Anthurium, you should keep the roots constantly moist. I'm not saying soaking wet. It just really helps that this plant was grown in pond. Pond holds onto a lot of water. And so even if you miss a watering, just as long as there's a reservoir, the substrate around the roots will stay moist. If you have this in an aerated mix, always make sure it's chunky, and just make sure you're keeping on top of the watering as well. Just because a chunky aerated mix, they tend to dry out faster. And then if it was in LECA, like it's kind of similar to pond. Obviously, you would just have to keep changing the reservoir when you usually do it. I've never grown this in LECA, so I have no idea. I know it was in a LECA mix in the beginning, but it was, I want to say more, like I was treating it more like a plant in pond. So I wasn't necessarily changing the nutrient solution because I wasn't able to because it was in that closed system. Stick your finger in the substrate as per usual. Make sure it's not like so dry. And just as long as it's a little moist, then they should be okay. The fertilization. So y'all saw that I did the slow release fertilizer. I don't know if I would do that again. I don't know if I would just, stick with that. It's hard because like I don't necessarily repot plants often. And so like I don't really have an opportunity to put those slow release fertilizer granules like in the substrate. So I would use like maybe a third to a half dilute nutrient solution. Y'all know 2021, I was over fertilizing a ton. You know that this was in a closed system, and I think I didn't start flushing the Veitchii until the 2-year mark. So it was in that pond for so long. The thing that forced me to flush this substrate, or now that it's in this planter, is because the indicator broke, and so I actually can't tell where the water level is. So this, Future Kevin zoom in, this is useless because I think one of the roots or a piece of pond got inside of it somehow, and it won't float upwards when you fill it up with water. I don't like playing a game of like guessing, and so I always have to bring this to a sink every couple weeks, pull out the stopper from the bottom, and just water it through until I see like water coming out of the bottom. At that point, that tells me that the reservoir is at the maximum. And then that's really the point that I keep it the maximum. There's a space in these planters. So the maximum is just when this portion of the planter is full. I'm actually shocked that, I didn't flush this plant for 2 years and she still appeared okay, I guess. When it comes to velvet leaf anthuriums, I do recommend flushing. Like I kind of learned the hard way, and you'll see in a future video where I talk about my Anthurium regal, and y'all have already seen it with my queen anthurium. Like they get angry, like those kind of anthuriums that are so sensitive to like the salt or over fertilization. Like I definitely would recommend that. But just seeing that I didn't flush this for 2 years and she still pushed out like beautiful leaves, it just shows again how hardy it is. I don't know, I've been kind of doing that for a year. You can see that this leaf is smaller than the last one. I still don't know if it's because the plant's roots need more room and I need to repot it, or if like it needs more nutrients. I have no idea. It might also be because, and I forgot to mention, there is an inflow. Future Kevin zoom in. There's an inflow right over here. And I always cut them. I always like to favor foliage with certain plants. I'm keeping this one because I want to pollinate it with my Moodinum, who's also like the inflow's out. So we'll see. But it's pushed out so many inflows. It's pushed out so many inflows, and I've just cut all of them off. Inflows are energy suckers. Like the foliage will suffer, and that might be another reason why the leaf is smaller. Do I have any tips? I get a lot of questions about like the wetness factor when it comes to roots and like, what level to keep it at. Anthurium roots will get really like upset if you try them out completely. So no matter what substrate you have it in, again, just make sure you have a constant moistness, but not like soaking wet, like sitting in water. That's ultimately what I mean by that. When Anthurium roots sit in water, you do see it as kind of yellowing or crisping on the edges of the leaves. You'll see it more, I want to say, with velvet leaf anthuriums. But yeah, anthuriums are fascinating because you can, save a anthurium by putting in water. It'll grow like these thick roots, and so therefore you think they'll be okay. But if you keep them sitting in water, those existing roots that grew in the water, like they'll tend to get mushy, rot. So it's like this medium moistness that I want to say, like it's hard to explain. And that's why I'm kind of obsessed keeping my anthuriums in pond because of its water retentive properties. Even if like the reservoir dries out, for example, those rocks can really hold on to water. Lighting, y'all know that, that I'm just obsessed with giving them almost too much light. But with this anthurium, like I haven't blasted it with a grow light for like more than a year now. She's only relied on the south facing window. But I do think people think they're giving plants enough light, but they're not. My recommendations are still medium to bright and dark light. And I just say that because at the bright and direct like maximum point, when I was growing it when it was pretty juvenile, like she was spitting out leaves like so quickly and they still looked healthy. Always play it by ear if you have your Anthurium under a grow light, just because all grow lights are different. Some grow lights will really bleach leaves, and with this one, I think it's because the Veitchii is pretty hardy. Like, it didn't really show. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the clips. Like, did it look okay in like the 6-month update? Because she was still under a grow light, I think. I think it's weird because I don't really see the Veitchii in people's collections, and it's strange because it's been around for so long. And I always recommend this Anthurium as like a starter. Like, if you're not into Anthuriums or if you want to start getting into Anthuriums, like I would recommend this plant just because it's so hardy. In my experience, like leaf growth, especially at a juvenile state, like it was pretty fast. So yeah, in love. I love this plant so much. And so yeah, the mic is far. I'm probably echoey. I'm so used to walking around the room, but I can't with this mic. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank y'all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.